Delkey, Hiley Durand, Zach Hiring, Pat Kovash, John Rokla, Jeff Schauman, Bobby Celine, and Deb White.
Okay, we've got the agenda minutes from last month. Take a moment to review, and then could someone make a motion to approve?
Second.
The minutes are approved. Any citizens addressing the board today? I don't believe there are any. Commissioners report. Pat?
Got a brief one here from the MBA. We'd like to thank all the co-sponsors and the Moorhead Center Mall for their part in another successful diversity job fair. It was held on September 18th. We had 38 businesses there that were looking for people. So, that really tells you what we have for a workforce shortage. And we had over 100 job seekers that showed up there. So, kind of a nice event. We're having our 560 Connect at Harold's tonight on Main at 5 o'clock, and EDA members are welcome to attend. So if you have a chance, stop out there. It's 560. It's at 5 o'clock for 60 minutes. So if you get a chance, swing out there, support our Moorhead business. The MBA Let's Talk Business, we meet every Wednesday at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then the last Wednesday at noon at the Speakeasy. And mark your calendars. We're celebrating the MBA's business annual meeting. It'll be held on November 14th at the Courtyard by Marriott. If you're interested in attending this event, please register online. And if you go online, there'll be 3 different dinners, and you can put it on a credit card. It would be nice to have record attendance like we did last year. Let's fill the room up.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I had a question for Pat. Who's your speaker this year?
We're working on it.
Okay.
Our speaker this year will be Brian Cole.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Thanks for making me aware of that.
John?
Just maybe for an update on Moorhead Public Service, next meeting, there's going to be a rate hearing, so if there's any parties interested, would like to get input from them, please attend. Also, a couple major items here that we are going to be looking at: funding approval for the sludge plant pressing system. That's about a $7 million project. Also, the South Moorhead new water tower is going to be looked at as starting as a project as well here for it. With some changes here, our I-94 tower, there's going to be a delay on getting the painting, and we're still in the process of looking for input for the artwork that is going to be placed on that piece of infrastructure. So basically, that's going to be about $10 million approximately for those infrastructure improvements. Any questions at all? Okay.
John, can you remind, where's the location of that meeting on the 15th?
That one,
Will it be here?
I won't be attending here, but if my memory serves, that would be here.
Okay.
Because we have meetings that are held here in this location, and then also at the water treatment plant here for it. We've had some comments about that, so we have new signage put up and of how to get access to the meeting if individuals would like to do so. Hopefully at this point it would be easier to locate the meeting.
Okay. If no one has anything else, we'll move on to the Holiday Mall TIF bond refinancing update. Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you recall, Rick Jordal and his attorney have requested that per the settlement agreement for the Holiday Mall development, years ago, there was an option that the city could agree to refinance the TIF bond under certain conditions, et cetera, et cetera. We've been talking with Jordal group about that. They have requested that. And if you also recall, in earlier conversations many months ago, we had said that we would look at that, at the option to do that if they would kind of consider opening up that Brookdale area for redevelopment, because we've had an awful lot of queries about that area and lots of potential development in that area. Then fast forward, last month they came to you with an idea for a project to kind of move the current family fair building. So it's running north-south on that property and kind of make that a strip mall area. That was their own project. And they're asking for some long-term financing, which we have a meeting with them tomorrow, and we're talking to them about that. So that is going on, and at the same time, I considered the bond refinancing, did some research, and we are willing to refinance their bond. They owe about $1.575 million still on that bond that they took out in '09 for that Holiday Mall project. The cost to refinance it would be about $70,000. So the total they would refinance is $1.645 million. With that, what we can offer is they currently have an interest rate of about 4.24%. We are going to do a bond issuance for the city. We would not do this separate. It's too costly and too time-consuming, but we are doing a big bond issuance for the city in November. We would roll this bond in, and they could likely get down to about 1.65%. So that's a pretty good decrease in interest rate. So it does make sense that we do that for them. I am willing to incorporate this into our bond refinance and all the stuff that goes along with that. They would net about $125,000 then. It's not a ton, but it's something. And so I will be relaying this to them. If they were here, I was going to tell them. Otherwise, I will relay this to them in our meeting tomorrow when we talk about their potential development. So I just want to give you that status and then close that door on that discussion. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, summary of the pre-development agreement between City of Moorhead and Roars.
Super. I think this may be an opportunity for a little conversation. There's been a lot of genuine and real excitement around what's happening in downtown Moorhead. In the last month, the City Council has entered into a pre-development agreement with Roars Development to take a look at the public areas around the Moorhead, the City Hall, and Moorhead Center Mall. These include the building that we're in right now, in addition to the hallways in the mall and the parking lots and parking ramp. Basically what this is a real estate development agreement whereby Roars Development will represent the city's interest in figuring out what the future of this place is. So we get a lot of plans about where the mall, questions about what's happening, what the plan is. One of the beauties here is that we don't have answers to that. There isn't a plan. We're working on that as part of the downtown Moorhead plan. There's been a lot of great community engagement. Over 800 participants in the survey, the great pop-up events, the good turnouts at the community engagement. At the YEM-Comps, we just finished that first phase, and that second is going to be starting soon. In fact, right here with the Moorhead Economic Development Authority in the November meeting, David Dixon from the Urban Places Group with Stantec and the Stantec team in downtown Moorhead Inc. will be at this meeting to provide the first update and some of the information that we're hearing publicly as we enter that next phase. So, but wanted to come back and let you know that that's happening and that this conversation about what redevelopment in the context of this larger area is underway. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and City Manager Bokers and John Shockley are here as well. So.
And could you basically review how the selection process of Rose was conducted? I mean, were there several other developers or reviewed their credentials, or how was it that Roars was selected?
Well, they were selected, it's a professional services agreement by a very qualified developer, and so Roars was selected to do that work on behalf of the city.
So with that being said, there wasn't a selection process of several different companies. It was just a discussion came to be that Roars was a company that the city wanted to work with.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Regala. So So to that point, we've been talking about redevelopment, or the city. I've only been here not quite 3 years, but the city's been talking about the redevelopment of the city hall for a very, very long time in this surrounding city-owned properties. And I'll tell you, we've had exactly one developer contact us ever, or at least in the last 10 to 15 years, about potential development of the site. And it wasn't just that there was only one developer that talked to us. It was about that this developer wanted to talk about the holistic area, not just City Hall, but the holistic area of the surrounding city-owned property also. And this developer proposed that he work with other developers because this project is so big that no one developer can likely do it, and he's been very honest about that. So to that, and that's why we entered into this pre-development agreement with the one developer that has contacted us and ever had a discussion with us. And as it turns out, this developer is a very reputable developer and a large enough developer that they can start the conversation. Now, who knows what it's going to look like down the road, as Dan said. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to own what or what's going to be here. Those are all discussions to be had. This is simply a professional service agreement, similar to when you need to get your taxes done. You find an accountant who is capable and able to do your taxes. If you need an attorney, you find an attorney who is capable and able to handle your legal matters. Same thing with this development. The city, I am not a developer, nor is the city. We do sewer and water and streets and wastewater, et cetera. We don't do development. That's not so we have to hire a professional to do this, and hence where Roars came into the picture. Thank you.
I appreciate that, because that's about the only question that I've been asked about, is what was the process that was used, and I think that would be it is very helpful with that clarification. And I agree, Roars is, a phenomenal group from my experience as well, so that's not a concern. But again, Clay, thank you for the clarification.
Well, I own a business in the mall or on the outside of the mall, and I've had many people come up to me and say, what are you going to do now that the mall has been sold? So there is a lot of misconception out there happening. I don't know if people aren't listening closely enough or exactly how. But I sent a letter to the editor, and I think it's on the Inforum today. But my letter ultimately says that the mall has not been sold. For the most part, it's not even really for sale. This agreement is a preliminary, speculation, talking about the vision of what could happen. So nothing has happened yet. So I think there's a lot of misconception out there. So this agreement is an agreement about what could the potential be. And of course, then everybody would have to come together. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of misconception right now. Yeah.
Dan or Chris, would there be any advantage to just highlighting a few of the highlights, I guess, of the pre-development agreement, or what services Roars is essentially providing at this time?
Mr. Chair, I think that's a great point. I think if the board is interested, we could have our city attorney kind of give you the highlights of what does a pre-development agreement mean and what does it look like. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, we've of course got the copy of the agreement here, but I think for the public good,
Sure.
just touching on a few of the high points.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Economic Development Authority. So it's actually a two-part agreement. It's a pre-development agreement and a option to purchase the City Hall property. And so as City Manager Volkers had indicated, cities normally don't undertake development of property. The particular challenge with the City Hall property is it's interconnected with an existing mall. So if the city just went to sell the property by itself, realizing value out of the building might be a challenge, because what are you going to do just simply with the vertical structure being surrounded by a mall? And so trying to realize the best return on investment for the taxpayers, the city decided that it would be most appropriate to engage a party that could both buy the City Hall in addition to performing a redevelopment of the city hall structure and the city property, and potentially working with mall owners so that we could increase the value of what the city has, rather than just simply piecemealing parts of it out. So the redevelopment, or the pre-development agreement includes a number of critical points. The first is that the developer is responsible really for assembling a team of people, architects, engineers, appropriate third parties to go ahead and put together concepts and redesign and engage the public through a public relations plan that is consistent with the downtown redevelopment plan for what types of uses would be most appropriate in this venue, what is the best way to realize the best return on investment for this venue, a whole host of other issues. They don't receive any compensation for performing that work. What they do receive is the option, if they can put together a redevelopment project that works, that's economically feasible, is the city will then finalize the option to purchase the property. So it works nice in that the city is not advancing funds for professional services to go ahead and redevelop the mall. Instead of us going out and finding architects and redevelopers and paying them professional fees and maybe not even realizing a project, this way the city is able to utilize the best elements of the private industry, bring that to the front without the taxpayers having to front those funds. So that's the first part. If they're able to put together if they're able to put together a redevelopment plan, we would then enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of the city property. As part of that purchase agreement, whatever the final purchase value is would be attributed to a city building being constructed pursuant to a lease purchase agreement. So the city essentially becomes like a senior partner in that equity comes out first and that's reapplied to the new transaction. Those agreements have not been developed yet. There would be an opportunity to decide what the value of the city hall would be in the purchase. And the city council, of course, has the right to say that value isn't high enough and negotiate through those, along with if there's construction of additional city buildings. And that could take the form of a city hall, a library. There's a lot of flexibility built into the agreement. The agreement really sets the sideboards out with the intent that in the future we'll come down with these agreements. It may require future actions by the EDA relative to incentives to make the project work, but we don't know what the project looks like. We don't know what those incentives would be as of today's date, because it's truly in the early pre-development phase. So I can certainly answer any questions that you might have regarding it.
I do have a question. And I'm not exactly certain how to state this, but so if this development company comes up with a plan and everybody sits down at the table to talk, and let's just say it encompasses most of the area of the Moorhead Center Mall, and the owners are not willing to, they're not interested, they're not willing, they don't want any part of it, so then does it die? I mean, so the owners of the mall can't be forced to sell, can they?
Correct, and we would hope that the developer would be able to incentivize the owners into doing something new with the space. I think it's fair to say that in the retail industry, we're recognizing that the retail is going through an apocalypse, if you will.
Yes.
Storefronts are not able to compete with internet sales. And you're really seeing the rise of destination retail, where to make retail a survivable commodity. And I think we've seen Shields have demonstrated that with their store in Fargo, where they have different functions like a Ferris wheel and rides and a place to eat and those sorts of things that are incorporated into that business model. We would hope that the developer is able to do something like that to create more of a destination retail, and we'd hope that the property owners would be interested in participating in that. The developer doesn't have eminent domain authority. The city's not talking about anything like that. We would hope that it would be a cooperative effort, that with the city partnering with the developer, there's an opportunity to access incentive plans. There's an opportunity to access the expertise of maybe there is some type of use that's in this building that can bring more value to the whole mall. And so we're kind of looking at it as, instead of us versus them mentality, that let's get all the parties to work together and maybe everybody can come out ahead on it.
I know, it would be very exciting to see, some changes, and that would be wonderful. And so I just wanted to clarify that. But I do think, this business about everybody working together is very, very cool. I mean, we have a lot of potential, and it could be very good. One of the good things about the mall is most of the stores in the mall are already a destination store. People are going to their store, they're going to the mall to go to that particular store. It's not a mall where you browse the halls and walk the halls and do a little shopping. They're going there specifically to go to that store. So, yeah, I think it's very exciting.
Any other discussion on that topic?
Just to add on to that, too, and I really appreciate Commissioner Dilke's comments, especially since you are a business owner right here, because, to be able to have that insight into what, how people are feeling about it. And I know from being on the end of the earlier discussions that, it was really exciting for us to see for years, there's been this talk about we need to reinvigorate downtown, and you could see the momentum building. And many people talked about the fact that we've got this big piece of real estate that, that has to be part of the equation. And I think early on, I valued that there always was when we had this opportunity come to us, that there always was this discussion of how do you do this in a way that, we really value the folks that have built their businesses in here in Moorhead and have shown that commitment, but how can we also build on that, And one of the things that I think was clear is we're taking up a big piece of valuable real estate that could be put to better use. And I think the theme was kind of how do we get out of the way and let growth happen, So more than anything, really wanting to see that next generation, really capitalizing on the momentum so that we can have a greater downtown. And it, more than anything, just meant for us to move, to get out of the way, so.
Mr. Chair, first and foremost, I'd say I think it's great, the pre-development agreement that's happened with Roars and what the City Council already acted on, I believe, about a week or two ago. There is an opportunity here, and we're seeing a lot of good things happening downtown with the new Epic buildings, with Junkyard Dog, with the Simon's Warehouse, so forth. So it's good to continue that momentum. One of the things we've seen in the press, and I think that some of the residents might be interested in, is the secondary impact of redevelopment, which is what work or studies have been done to look at what happens to City Hall. So if a viable option comes to the table, what does that mean? Has there been thoughts about location? And maybe you just give a little color. I know it's premature to some extent, but what's the second part of this mean?
Thank you, Board Member Chesson. So there's a couple things happening. The downtown downtown planning, what do we call it? The downtown plan, actually, is in the beginning, the we're about a 1/3 way through that whole planning process about downtown. What does Center Avenue look like? What does Main Avenue look like? What does First Avenue look like? What does downtown look like? What do people want? They want gathering spaces. We've had over 800 people respond to the survey. Derek's talked about this. We've had pop-up meetings. We've had public meetings. We've got all this information, right? So pulling that together. So I can't answer as far as what will it look like, but your point is well taken in that no matter what the next step is, the downtown plan, the results of it will have a lot of input into that. And then, as City Attorney Shockley said, the decision on what to do with City Hall is a great example. What could go here? Lots of things could go here, right? And this building could be gutted too. Trust me, it's falling apart. There are things about this building that is not good. But then where does City Hall go? I have an interest in City Hall being with the library because I think that's public service. I think that when people come to their government and to pay their MPS bill, to see their Parks and Rec, to come in and apply for their permit, or to go to their library. Those are your local government functions, and I have an interest, but I'm one person, one opinion, right? The community needs to speak to that. We don't have a legal authority, this is of interest, to build a new library. We have, we contribute about $800,000, $900,000 a year towards our local library, which is in a regional library system, and we do not have the mandate to provide buildings, but we do because it's the right thing to do, because our community wants their public library, right? And they're part of the services that we provide to the citizens with the public dollar. So anyway, as far as what it looks like, I don't know, but those are some of the things we're talking about. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
If I could speak again, you know, I know that the city is working really hard on communication and transparency, but I really believe this is really important. I believe that the members, the citizens of Moorhead, you know, need and want to know kind of what's going on and what's happening. So I think if we can continue to try to stay in good conversation together, and, you know, talking about, as John Regala talked about, possibly getting bids on the property, I think it's really important, as Roars is putting this plan together, you know, that somehow it is, I don't know, let out for bids, or I don't know exactly how that happens. So
One thing that's unique here is the space is so big. It isn't, you know, we're not talking about this parking lot or that parking lot or just the ramp. It's, as Chris was saying earlier, it's the whole parcel, you know?
Yes.
Which, you know, Jim Roars, when he was talking with the city council, when it was considering this action, said, you know, and here's someone who does projects upwards of 60, 70, 80 million. He says, this is too big for us to do alone. We are going to need a lot of partners, and there's going to be different folks with different specialties that participate in this master plan. Which is really
yeah, excellent.
where the, you know, the answers will lie in terms of how the whole area kind of works together to create someplace that's very special and someplace that's worthy of the future. Like John said, storefront retail, just things alone isn't going to be enough to carry a central business district.
Yes.
It's going to be the experience first that really drives it, which makes a lot of sense. Same stuff I tell my kids. It's about your experiences, not the things, you know? And so I mean that in the sense that downtown should be a place
Yes.
that just draws people in, you know? And literally lifts on, like, builds on the strengths that are already here in Moorhead, the strengths related to achievement in arts and culture and you know, young people, and being able to move along this great river corridor. You know, it's a real opportunity. I'm just going to keep on talking. These parking, let's be honest, these parking ramps are economic craters. You know, and the value, I mean, it's going to cost, there's more, in terms of if we go out and just repave them, they're more expensive than they're worth whatever the possibility is. So we're not really working in the context of what is. We have that. We know what that is. We're doing that now. This is in the possibility, that whole area of what growth looks like and how we want to grow together, which is challenging, exciting, and new, and all that.
Thank you.
I think getting the Roars Group in here is an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, right now, we have the wind at our back. We're seeing economic development on a scale that we really haven't seen. I've been in town for 15 years running my business, and it's going to take a private developer to negotiate this. Having city input on this would be a disaster. You need somebody. We finally have a developer that's willing to step forward and that's going to be able to negotiate this. And, you know, there's an old saying, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. But let's engage in the conversation, because, like, even for the mall owners, and I know there's like 6 or 7 different, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for you. And so we need to just make sure that we all work together, because it's happening, and it's happening right now. And this opportunity may not be here very long, and we need to take advantage of it.
Anything further? Okay.
just, this is, again, going, talk to people and find out what they would love to see as a, and that's where, we've thrown out, there's been a few ideas that were tossed around about a science museum or an aquatic center, but it's so early, and that is, what would be the thing that would really draw people into downtown? And then I just wanted to mention, in terms of Commissioner Schaufman's question about City Hall, and I can say that was one of the things that was really clear, too, is that was, and not to say that we obviously aren't thinking about it, but that was a very low priority. I would say we spent very little time talking about the future for City Hall, like where it would be located, because it was really about what can happen here. And I personally, I don't work here every day, but stick me anywhere, like we'll work that out. But right now, this is the priority, is how can we really reinvigorate our downtown? And we'll figure out where we're gonna be housely. Obviously, we need a City Hall, but that was definitely not the priority at this point.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Dan, Economic Development Report.
Certainly. So Derek wanted me to send his regrets about not being able to be here. His report is in the packet. I'm not going to come anywhere near it for talking as long as Derek does. So, but I couldn't help but take that shot. I hope he sees that. But there are just a couple highlights that I do want to make. The one is the downtown master plan. I had mentioned earlier that David Dixon will be here next month, so that'll be really exciting. We'll be hearing what the start of this, what we're hearing, and the next phases of the project and everything else. So I'm really looking forward to being here for that with you. The storefront rehab program is at the end of September. Applications were due. The Moorhead Loan Fund met last week to review. There were 7 applications, have preliminary approval on 2 of them, and had sent back. There were 5 that went back. Either they might have been outside the zone or been looking for improvements that weren't related to the storefront. Might have been the interior, some like electrical panels and some different things. There are other tools in the toolbox that might be able to assist some of these, whether they're the exemptions or some of the partnerships with deed or some of the other things. So we're at first letting these businesses know that we're happy they're in Moorhead, and that we want to partner to make them as successful as they possibly can be. But these storefronts are a lot of fun, so we look forward to that happening. One is the why am I thinking JLG?
Junkyard Brewery and
Well,
the
Junkyard,
Homestead
but the
property.
other, the YHR Architects.
Oh, yeah.
And then the others right along Junkyard, Cafe Soul.
Soul, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Soul Ave.
Soul Ave. So that'll be just totally activate that street. The rendering is on both are really pretty exciting. The one at YHR is neat in that it just brings back this historic storefront that's there, replaces the panels with something that's kind of got that historic architectural piece, and then lighting and a little courtyard for gathering and things like that. So that should be a really great way to enter Moorhead that'll just pop. So both projects that are looking, I know that one is looking to start in the spring. Was the Junkyard going to start in the spring as well?
They're starting now.
Starting right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so they just need approval by West Central that we've recommended, and so we'll bring those to you when they have final approval. And then the last is we're getting all kinds of excitement out in McCara, especially on the I-94 lots. There's 2, we have approval on the sale of 2 of the I-94 lots, and we have letters of interest on a couple of more. So that's really great to see as well, this commercial, industrial kind of growth and development excitement in Moorhead.
Dan, would you also mention on the storefront rehab when the next period of applications will come due?
That is due at the end of the year.
The next
So,
round?
yep,
Okay.
December 31st.
They're quarterly.
Mhm.
So we're going to do them in 3-month increments.
Mhm. So I thought we had a great visit with the Moorhead Loan Fund Committee. Thank you all for being there. And so look forward to getting these first 2 approved and seeing what else comes along.
Okay, moving on, item number 9, information update on building permits.
That's more for your information in the
Okay,
packet.
any input there from anyone? Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
We're adjourned.
Thanks all.